Malta. Malta. I'm American and I know absolutely nothing about Malta. I honestly can't even, if I were to think about Malta on a map, I know it's really small, right? But I don't remember where to place it. It's like down by Italy, like Southern Europe? All right, neither here nor there. Today we're checking out Malta, history, geography, economy, and culture. We're covering the 4 horsemen of Malta. Not for real, I'm pretty excited about this video. I covered a couple other topics, and some of you Maltesans? You guys commented and were like, do a video about Malta. And I was like, drop one down below and I'll do it. And y'all came through for me. So without further ado, smash that like button and watch me discover what is going on in Malta. Wow. That looks so cool. Jeez. This looks like something out of a James Bond movie. Like James Bond goes here for like some reconnaissance mission in Malta, right here in this bay. He's on a yacht, and then he takes a small dinghy boat. Kidding. But no, seriously, this is it's huge. Like this part of the city is though.
At the strategic heart of the Mediterranean lies a small group of islands. Their long history is a timeline in microcosm of that sea as a whole. A flashpoint between 2 continents, it has been ruled by Phoenicians, Carthaginians, Romans, Vandals, Arabs, Sicilians, a religious military order, and the British. Today it lives on as a prosperous, urbanized, and finally independent nation. This is the ultimate island fortress.
Wait, hold on. I was going to say, yeah, look
independent
at those walls.
This.
Yeah, you're not penetrating that. That sounds a little dirty. Nobody's penetrating Malta.
This is the ultimate island fortress. This is Malta.
By the way, I never actually shouted out the YouTube channel. WWII. I'm a subscribe. Looks like they do a ton of stuff on different nation states, so might be good to have in my repertoire of videos. It's so close to Africa, though. It almost feels like it's like an African island and not really Europe. But I know Malta is considered Europe, right?
Nation situated in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, composed of 3 main islands and several smaller ones. Occupied and ruled across the ages by so many of the famous empires and nations in history, it has nonetheless maintained a culture that is today uniquely Maltese. In this presentation, I'll look at Malta's history.
Maltese. What did I say? Did I say Maltesians? Oh gosh, I was close though. Maltese.
History up to the present, its national organization and state structure and symbols, its physical and human geography, and lastly, its economy and culture. If you like these country summary videos, then please be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss future episodes. The origin of the name of the country is uncertain. The more accepted etymology is from the Greek word for honey, meli, and the ancient Greeks, in calling the islands Melite, meaning honey sweet, may have named them after their possible production of honey. An alternative explanation may be from the old Phoenician word maleth, meaning harbour or port, supposedly named after the island's many natural harbours.
Okay.
Malta's long and storied history goes back as far as any in Europe, with megaliths upon the island confirmed to be dated to at least 3600 BC, and pottery remains as far back as 5200 BC.
Did he say 6,300 BC?
Megaliths upon the island confirmed to be dated to at least 3600 BC, and pottery remains as far back as 5200 BC.
5200 BC. It's pretty wild that like pottery, like even anything can last that long, over 7,000 years.
One of the more curious remains of prehistoric peoples are the extensive series of grooves, possibly carved by tracks in the soft limestone, at the so-called Clapham Junction site, named after a busy London railway station. Phoenician traders colonized the islands around 700 BC, using them as a way station on their trade routes from the eastern Mediterranean to the west and beyond into the Atlantic. After the fall of Phoenicia to Alexander the Great in 332 BC, the islands came under the control of the former Phoenician colony, Carthage. In their wars with the Romans, the Carthaginians lost, then retook Malta, before the islands finally came under Roman rule in 218 BC. Under Roman governance lasting 6 centuries, Malta enjoyed a fair degree of autonomy as its own municipium or free town. Following the collapse of the Western Roman Empire at the beginning of the 5th century AD, Malta was occupied by first the Vandals and then the Ostrogoths, before being retaken for Rome by the surviving Eastern Roman Empire, today known as Byzantium. The Byzantines would hold the islands for the next 3 centuries before they fell to the Arabs in 870 as part of their conquest of Sicily at the time. The Arabs would hold the islands for another 2 centuries until they were taken back into Christian hands by the Normans in 1091. For the next 5 centuries, Malta passed peacefully between various European dynasties, especially those of Iberia, and became thoroughly Christian and westernized. But in 1530, Maltese history took a more unique path when it was gifted by the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V to the Knights Hospitaller, a religious Catholic Christian military order that had emerged during the Crusades against the Muslims of the previous centuries and who had been expelled from the Greek island of Rhodes by the Ottoman Turks a few years earlier.
They just gave it to him?
Charles's faith in the Knights proved to be well founded, as only a few decades later, in 1565, Malta was besieged by 40,000 Ottoman Turks, but under the leadership of their Grand Master Jean Parisot de Valette, and with the assistance of Spain and Sicily, the siege was repelled successfully, despite being outnumbered more than 4-1.
Damn.
Following this siege, the fortifications of the island were enhanced, especially around the inner harbour, and this new city was named in honour of the Grand Master that had pushed back the Ottomans, the future capital of Valletta. This was one of the many building projects the Knights undertook during their governance, and which has given the island today its distinctive architectural character. They would rule Malta for almost the next 3 centuries, and because of this association became more commonly known as the Knights of Malta. Their reign came to an end, as did so many changes in Europe, with the Napoleonic Wars at the end of the 18th century.
Man, he took literally everything. Absolutely. I feel like every country I go to, like especially the smaller countries, go through the history and then it's always like, and then Napoleon came and overtook it.
The religious military order's possessions in France had been seized in the secular French Revolution of 1789, and when the revolution's new leader Napoleon arrived in 1798, the Knights surrendered without a fight. Only 2 years later, however, and the occupying French forces were ousted in a local uprising with the assistance of Great Britain. An international treaty 2 years later would have returned the islands to the Knights, but the local populace protested. The Knights had never really integrated with the locals, and in the latter centuries had become unpopular. Instead, the Maltese requested protection from the British under the condition that they could not later cede the islands to any other power, but instead hand the islands back to the locals.
Okay.
In the closing stages of the Napoleonic Wars, Malta was officially passed to the British Empire as a colony in the Treaty of Paris in 1814. Malta's position in the heart of the Mediterranean served British interests greatly, as it became a resupply station for ships passing through the Suez Canal from 1869 on their way to British India. For the next century and a half of British rule, the relations between them and the locals was mixed, with autonomy given in 1921 and then revoked again in 1933, for instance, over local protests regarding the imposition of the English language in schools. It was during World War II, however, that perhaps Malta's greatest hour came. Surrounded on all sides by
Really?
the Axis powers of Germany and Italy, the islands withstood relentless bombing from enemy air attacks throughout the war. Perhaps the most famous incident was on the 9th of April 1942, when the dome of the Rotunda of Mostar was pierced by a German Luftwaffe high-explosive bomb, which then failed to detonate.
That's a mouthful. What did he just say?
April 1942, when the dome of the Rotunda of Mostar was pierced by a German Luftwaffe high-explosive bomb, which then failed to detonate. 300
Damn.
people were in the church at the time awaiting the evening mass. No one was injured, and the locals hailed it as a miracle. Despite
Sounds like
6
it.
years of bombing, the islands held. To honor the bravery of the people of Malta during this time, they were collectively given the George Cross, the British Empire's highest civilian decoration and normally only given to individual acts of bravery. The Maltese wear this award with pride in their flag and coat of arms today.
Okay.
In its heroic defense during that very modern war, Malta continued its tradition as an impregnable island fortress from past centuries into recent history. Britain eventually honoured the terms of their protectorate with the Maltese people in 1964, handing back the islands to the locals when Malta became an independent state. In 1987, a neutrality clause was included in its constitution, guaranteeing geopolitical non-alignment. However, Malta today is a republic within the British Commonwealth as well as a member of the European Union. These last two
they
concepts, being in the EU and the Commonwealth but also non-aligned, might sound paradoxical, and this is because of the polarised struggle between the two main political parties of Malta since independence. The centre-left Labour Party, which favours Maltese non-alignment and independence geopolitically, contrasts with the centre-right Nationalist Party, favouring alignment with the West, and which was instrumental in the push for Malta to joining the EU, a stalemate that was finally settled by a relatively close referendum just before its accession in 2003. The unicameral parliament of 65 members, elected for 5-year terms, is modelled on the British Westminster system. While the elected president is the head of state, that is largely a ceremonial role, with executive power coming from the Prime Minister, who is the leader of the largest political party in Parliament. Malta has the highest voluntary voter turnout of any country in the world.
What?
In terms of local government, Malta is divided into 68 local councils that deal with typical municipal and city issues. The majority of these are within the Greater Valletta area in this highly urbanized island nation. In the Cato Institute's latest Human Freedom Index, Malta scores well, being ranked 24th most free country overall. The flag of Malta is a white and red bicolour with the George Cross top left.
The flag looks really cool. I kind of like the flag a lot. Something about the cross that just really makes it like pop. I don't know. With the little red outline around it. Looks cool.
The red and white colours were once believed to be from Roger of Sicily, who conquered the islands from the Arabs in 1091, but this has recently been debunked as a myth. The red and white colours of the Knights of Malta are the more likely source. The coat of arms depicts the flag on a central shield with the fortifications of the island acting as a crown, while wreaths of olive and palm leaves flank each side. The bottom ribbon reads Republic of Malta in the Maltese language. Malta is situated in the central Mediterranean in a strategic narrow gap between the island of Sicily and the North African coast of Tunisia at a latitude of 36 degrees north.
Yeah, it's like right in
The
the
three
middle.
inhabited islands, Malta, Gozo and Comino, account for virtually all of the total land area of 315 square kilometres. The road and ferry journey of 53 kilometres from the northwest to the southeast extreme would take about 2 hours. The base of the islands is
That's got to be a long bridge, no? I wonder how far that is. 2 hours and 2 minutes from one end to the other. So this is maybe like 15 minutes to get across that. I wonder... It's got to be like miles long, no?
would take about 2 hours. The base of the islands is limestone, a waterable permeable rock that accounts for the complex of inlets and natural harbours that, with the island's strategic position, have made it such a desirable base among sea powers. The local buildings, cut from the pale rock, produce the lightness of color that dominates the city of Valletta as a whole, along with providing white sand beaches between the cliffs that otherwise dominate the coastline. These cliffs around the island further enhance the island's ability to act as a fortress. The climate is Mediterranean in the Köppen system, with hot dry summers and mild wet winters. With more than 3,000 hours of sunshine per year, it is one of the sunniest places in Europe. But the downside is a lack of water supply. A densely populated island nation with no permanent streams.
Pretty crazy how like all of the buildings literally just look like, if you kind of cross your eyes and look away, you wouldn't even notice that they're there. Like they blend in so well to the limestone. It's crazy.
In a climate that sees almost no rain for half the year meant that the country had to embark on a program of desalination of seawater to meet the population's water needs. While the natural biome is one of Mediterranean scrub of hardy shrubs and grasses, known as maquis and garrigue, little of this remains, with more than 2/3 of the country urbanized. So much of the country is built up that it is often referred to as a city-state. With a population of just over 500,000 squeezed onto a small set of islands, Malta's population density of 1,600 people per square kilometre makes it the 5th most densely populated country in the world. This population is made up mostly of Maltese natives, with a small minority of British and EU retirees. Malta has 2 official languages, English and Maltese. The latter is a rather unique language of Semitic, that is, of Middle Eastern origin, being a mix of medieval Romance, Sicilian and Arabic. It is the only Semitic language that uses the Latin alphabet and the only official Semitic language within the EU. About 90% of the population can speak Maltese, while 96% can speak English, 62% Italian and 20% French, making it one of the most multilingual countries in Europe. Malta is one of the most religious countries in Europe, perhaps no surprise considering it was governed by a religious military order for so many centuries. About 4 in 5 Maltese are Roman Catholic, the faith which is also the state religion. Although the official city limit is relatively small and confined to the harbour area, the urbanized area of the capital Valletta dominates the main island of Malta geographically and constitutes the majority of the population. With a GDP of just under $17 billion nominal, the Maltese economy today ranks 131st in the world, but per capita is ranked 24th. The economy of Malta has changed throughout the millennia according to the whims of the various polities that have ruled over it. For more than a century as a British colony, the economy of Malta had depended upon the sea trade and military presence of that power. The British withdrawal in the 1950s and 60s necessitated a drastic diversification of the economy into new areas. Today, about half of the economy is in services, with banking and software being notable. The abundant military and religious architecture of Malta, the beaches and rugged coastal scenery, in combination with so much sunshine, make Malta a popular tourist destination with up to 3 million visitors hosted each year. The remainder of the economy is in agriculture, fishing and manufacturing that is surprisingly diverse for a small island nation, and which includes aircraft parts, semiconductors and biotech. Maltese lira used to be the currency of the islands, but Malta joined the euro in 2008. Maltese culture is primarily European, being influenced by a succession of European powers that have ruled the island, although African and Middle Eastern influences remain, particularly in the Maltese language.
It looks so cool.
The island's neoclassical and Baroque architecture, a product...
This is a really good film grade. Whoever put this over makes it look way beautiful.
Of its high point of artistic development under the Knights in the 17th and 18th centuries, is Malta's most visible cultural face, with the heart of the city of Valletta being a UNESCO World Heritage Site. At the other end of its history, the various Neolithic temples upon the islands and the necropolis known as the Hal Saflieni Hypogeum, all dating to before 3000 BC, make up Malta's 2 other World Heritage Sites. Malta's 3,000 plus hours of sunshine and famed architecture have made the islands a popular choice for TV and movie principal photography, including Game of Thrones, Gladiator, Troy, the Count of Monte Cristo, World War Z, the Da Vinci Code,
Dang.
and Popeye. And what
Really?
about those most tiny of canines, the Maltese? Well, the breed has been around since antiquity, and while the name suggests it may have come from Malta, we
This literally looks like my dog.
cannot know for certain due to the far distant origin of the breed. The famed Maltese cross appears on the ensign of Maltese civilian vessels. The cross is not unique to Malta, being associated with many religious and military orders across Europe since the Middle Ages, but its use by the Knights of Malta cemented its association with the islands, and for the last few centuries, this distinctive symbol is named for Malta. And what about those famed Knights of Malta? Were they lost to history after losing the islands during the Napoleonic Wars? Actually, no. The religious military order still lives today, headquartered in Rome without territory, but regarded as a sovereign entity in international law.
Wow.
While they may no longer be resident, their mark upon the island was surely the greatest of all, holding the island against all odds for Europe and Christianity, and preserved in the architecture of its streets, churches and fortifications that embody this, the quintessential Fortress Island nation. And that's
Fortress
Malta.
Island.
I hope you enjoyed this presentation of its history, geography, economy.
I had no idea that's what Malta looked like. I was like, in my head when I was thinking about Malta, I don't know. That's not what I pictured. So fascinating. Glad I actually have a little bit of information on Malta now, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So with that, I'm gonna head out of here. Appreciate you watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.